Right, should we crack on?
We should, yes.
Well, the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, is leading calls today for the Metropolitan Police Chief, Mark Rowley, to quit over what she describes as a litany of failures in policing pro-Palestinian rallies.
Yes, the latest scandal embroiling the Met is the force's reaction after an officer used the term openly Jewish to describe an anti-Semitism activist.
Gideon Falter was stopped from crossing a road near a pro-Palestinian march by the officer, who described him as quite openly Jewish.
Well, the force has since apologised, not once, but twice. Well, joining us in the studio is political commentator John Oxley. Good to see you this morning,
Good.
John. And this is just going from bad to worse for the Metropolitan Police, isn't it?
Absolutely. So this has been developing over the course of the week. Obviously, there's the background already of questions over how they've handled these protests. But there was this incident last weekend that received a lot of publicity. Then they apologised, and they've now actually had to apologise over their apology because it was so poorly worded and seen as just as inflammatory as their first mistake.
Just scrapping the man at the top help. I mean, he's not been in the job very long for a kick-off. I mean, if he can give assurances that things will change, perhaps he's best left in place to get on with that.
Well, this is the long-running issue that we had with his predecessor, Cressida Dick, who came under criticism for different reasons, particularly in the wake of the Sarah Everard case. But part of the question is, if the police are still struggling to find someone who can effect these sort of changes, do we have to think more broadly about an organisation? The current, Mr. Rowley already been criticised around his response to the review following the murder of Sarah Everard and how the police have handled a range of issues. So the question is, if he's not right, is there anyone who can get this organisation acting properly and in the public interest?
It makes you think about the comments from the anti-extremism czar about a month ago, who warned that there were no-go zones for Jews in central London. And the man in the centre of this row, Gideon Falter, the man who was told that he looked openly Jewish, he's written in the Sunday Times today saying that not only are there no-go zones for Jews, but he now says it's a police-enforced Jew-free zone. What do you make of those comments?
I think it's very hard to comment as someone who isn't Jewish, but I think what we're seeing from a number of members of the Jewish community is they are very much feeling that way. And incidents like this show, the police's primary approach here seems to be trying to avoid trouble, but doing so by taking away what they think is going to inflame protesters, rather than addressing the fact that these protests are apparently so volatile that the police consider even the presence of someone who looks Jewish and is wearing Jewish dress a provocation. And I can see why that's exceptionally worrying if you are Jewish.
I mean, you can understand why some people... And it's not that these people don't have a right to protest, as long as it's done peacefully and there isn't the hate language and all the rest of it. But you can understand why people get annoyed in that... it seems to be the police are scared of doing anything which would be perceived as, in any sense, racist or against a Muslim group or a Palestinian group or whatever it may be.
Yes, and that's exactly the point that's sort of coming out about this, that if there were any other sort of protest and any other sort of minority, the police response wouldn't be that minority has to remove themselves from the area in case it provokes the protesters. It would be, how do we treat this as a public order thing? How do we make sure this minority person is safe? And that would probably mean, some quite robust policing against the protesters, not, pulling this person out of the situation.
Yeah. It's the whole argument about policing in a without fear or favour.
Yes.
Which they don't seem to be doing.
No, and that's exactly it. And they don't seem to be taking on these, protesters when there's potential to become violent in a robust way. And that points, you have to have sympathy with the individual officers on the ground. It shows something wrong about the directions they're being given and the overall strategy. And that's, when you have to ask questions about the senior leadership of the police.
OK. John Oxley, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.